All right, welcome. My name is Krista Mathis. We are completing my test out video. Thank you for joining us. This is Jack Campbell. She's going to be my body in front of me today. Jack, do you have any spinal concerns or any injuries that I need to know about before we get started?
I do not.
Okay, are you okay with tactile touch or hands-on adjustments?
I'm fine with that.
Fabulous. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get ready and start with our reformer. So we'll be working with our footwork first, starting with beginner. So we're going to start with one red, one blue, one green spring. How tall are you, Jack?
I'm 5'6".
Do you like to be geared out or in? In is fine. Beautiful. Go ahead and lie back on the reformer supine. Place our head on the headrest, our shoulders towards the shoulder pad. Scooch down about an inch away from that shoulder pad so that we are not jammed up into them. Our scapula are backing down to activate our back muscles. Heels are on the foot bar to start. We're at the center rung here for the foot bar. Your heels will be on roughly hip distance apart, or about 4 to 6 inches between those heels. Flex the toes back towards the shins for calf energy. Hands are walked down on the mat. Beautiful. We'll inhale to prepare. We're working in a neutral spine. And as we extend the carriage, exhale. And then we're inhaling slowly as we resist the springs as we come back in. So as we inhale, we're allowing those lateral costals to grow nice and wide. We're staying in a neutral spine throughout. Pelvis is nice and glued to the carriage. Hands are long with energy. We're flexing and extending in these knees, using our quads and hamstrings. Also our glutes for support. All of our posterior chain is firing, and the core is nice and tight to keep us glued to the carriage, shoulders back and down. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and move into our intermediate footwork. We'll go into 2 reds, and 1 blue. Going to a wide heel setting with weights. Thank you very much. Our wide heels, the heels should set up so that they're roughly shoulder distance apart, staying within our anatomical setup. So looking at Jack right now, she looks just perfect. We externally rotate the toes out. Toes are flexed back towards the shin. Keeping, again, a neutral pelvis and a neutral spine, we'll go ahead and bring our arms out to the side. We're going to go into a hug a tree as we extend the carriage. So inhale to prepare, exhale, press the carriage out. Go ahead and bring those weights up to the ceiling, making that large barrel or hug a tree, and bringing yourself back in. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, press the carriage out using your glutes and hamstrings. We're allowing that chest to stay nice and glued to the carriage here, nice and tight with our rib cage dialed in towards that spine. Neutral spine, heavy pelvis, beautiful, shoulders back and down. 1 more. Exhale, press the carriage out, allowing those legs never to hyperextend, a slight micro bend, and bring it back in. Gorgeous. I'll take those weights from you. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to go into our advanced footwork. She is going into a single toe. I'm going to change her springs to just 2 red. And more advanced, obviously, because the toes are the least stable of contact to the foot bar. She will raise her left leg to tabletop. Thank you. Her right toe, I want to make sure that she's still set up hip distance apart. So we'll want to make sure that this set of toes stays underneath that sits bone, thank you, and we'll actually extend this leg to 45. Beautiful, arms down by your sides, nice active energy. Go ahead and walk your fingers down so those shoulders stay back and down, and we have our scapulars down in the back as well. Inhale to prepare. As you exhale, you'll press the carriage out, bend the knee to tabletop. Beautiful, hold here. Extend the leg to the ceiling. Beautiful. Circle the leg to the midline 5 times. Small circumduction. Think maybe baseball size. 5 times. Keeping this hip flexor nice and engaged. And now circle 5 times away from the midline. Our lower abdominals are allowing this leg to stay in space. Our glutes and hamstrings and quad holding our leg on the foot bar. And then after we're done, we flex the knee that is being used on the foot bar, and the top gesture leg comes back to 45, extend it over the foot bar. Beautiful. Let's go again. Extend out with your exhale, leg comes to tabletop. Beautiful. Extend it to the ceiling, 5 circles towards your midline, allowing those deep rotators to have that moment. 5 times away from the midline, keeping the core nice and turned on so we don't have instability in the pelvis. Go ahead and bring the carriage back in, bending that extending that gesture leg over the foot bar. One more time. Go ahead and extend that foot bar leg. Gesture knee to tabletop. You're fine. Bring it to the ceiling. 5 times we circle towards the midline. Tiny baseball size. It's not the size that makes the difference. It's about controlling that pelvis and keeping that small circumduction. Beautiful. And then go ahead and inhale as you come back in. Gesture leg stays at the 45, fully extended. Beautiful. So that is our footwork for today. Next we'll move on to bridging. Bridging, for beginners, excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard you say something. For our bridging beginning, we always like to start with a hip lift before we move into articulation to make sure both that our client is warmed up and that it is safe to do. So knowing Jack has no spinal concerns, we can go ahead and move through the bridging series safely. So we'll start with your heels on the foot bar. We'll be roughly hip distance apart here and in parallel. We'll make sure that your headrest is absolutely lowered behind you, which it already is. Thank you so much. Our hands are reaching along down by our sides. Beautiful. To begin, we'll start in a neutral pelvis, and we're going to just hinge and lift the hips in one motion. So inhale to prepare. Exhale, squeeze the glutes and hamstrings to activate that posterior chain. Slowly lower with your inhale. Allow the abdominals to bring those hips down safely. Let's go again. Inhale, rising those hips in one motion, allowing those glutes and hamstrings to fire. Now as we lower and inhale, we'll allow the abdominals to make that moment. Beautiful. Last one. Rise up in your hip lift, all one motion, allowing the glutes to squeeze at the top, and then slowly lowering down using those abdominals. Beautiful. We'll go ahead and move into a more intermediate moment here with our bridge. We will be going into a heels on the foot bar, again, hip distance apart. Thank you very much. And we will articulate this bridge safely. Again, no spinal concerns. So to begin, we will also add a knee extension here at the end. And I'm going to make sure, sorry? That's me. We'll make sure that she is on proper spring. So I have her on 2 reds right now for the knee extension. All right, when you're ready, we'll go ahead and rise up on our exhale, slowly peeling the spine up 1 vertebrae at a time. So you find your imprint first, and then slowly rise up till that mid-back is up, keeping all of the energy in the shoulders. And then with your inhale, slowly articulate back down to the carriage, starting with the mid-back, and then slowly allowing the pelvis to come down last. Beautiful. So let's add the knee extension this time. We'll go ahead and inhale to prepare. Exhale, rise up. We're articulating the spine. Hold here. Now slowly press out with those heels. Carriage comes out to the full knee extension. Careful not to hyperextend. Quads are using. And then we're coming back in slowly. That abdominal and that core is allowing us to find that extension. One more time. Pressing out for the knee extension here. Finding this beautiful plumb line. Keeping it out of the neck, into shoulders, and use the core to then bend the knees to come on back and find this high bridge. Beautiful. One more time. Feel good? Let's do it. Let's extend in the legs here, using our quads to find that extension in the knees. Our core is keeping us nice and tight. Glutes are squeezing in order to keep the high bridge, and slowly back in. Now we articulate down using that mid-back first, then the lumbar, then slowly allowing the pelvis to come down to neutral. Beautiful. That was lovely. Okay, our advanced bridge will go to single leg bridging. We're going to keep the 2 reds that we have on now. Thank you much. We're going to go into a heel for this one as well. Left leg will come back up to the gesture. Beautiful. And we're going to keep the left leg in the tabletop here as we move with the flex on the toe. And we'll slowly inhale to prepare. And as we find our exhale, we'll articulate the spine up to find that bridge. Beautiful. And then slowly inhale in preparation as we articulate down. And we go again. Rise up in the articulated bridge with our exhale. And then slowly inhale as we come down. Our abdominals are helping us to keep our knee at the 90 and 90 here with the hip. One more time. Rise up. Find that articulation. Beautiful. The glute on the standing leg is helping us to rise up as well as the hamstring. Slowly lower down. Beautiful. How'd that feel? Good. Okay, so making sure that our abdominals are turned on to keep the leg in tabletop. Glutes and hamstrings are working on that standing leg in order to rise up to the bridge. Beautiful. So after bridging, we go into supine hands. So we'll go into one red, one blue to start. This is the heaviest I would go in any Flow 1.0 class because it's not just about pushing through the strength. We want to have our shoulders stable as we move. So we'll already be geared in because Miss Jack is not geared out. Go ahead and grab the short loops from the pegs. Again, be mindful to keep the shoulders away from the shoulder pads by bringing those scapula back and down to activate our mid-back muscles. We will imprint the spine because we will be working in an open kinetic chain. So let's bring one leg to tabletop. The second will join. We'll flex the toes back towards our shin. Gorgeous, imprinted spine. When you're ready, inhale to prepare, exhale. Slowly lower the hands down by your side, finding our lower and lift. And then using the same amount of time, resist the springs as you come back to your natural shoulder. Don't go past the shoulder pad. Beautiful. Slowly lower down by your sides, keeping it nice and close to the core. Slowly rising it back up. Your arms should be perpendicular to the floor. And again, using that transverse abdominis to keep that pelvis nice and stable. We're rising the arms back up to space. And let's go one more. Slowly lowering it down, using that transverse abdominis to keep our pelvis glued to the carriage in that imprint. And beautiful. Go ahead and let those loose. Feet can find the foot bar. Beautiful. For our next supine arms for the intermediate, we will go into circles. This is basically a combination of the lower lift and the T-press that we do. And just being, again, mindful of the stability of her shoulders, we want to make sure in class that this is someone who can accomplish this task. So, staying on one red, one blue, we'll again imprint the spine to start, bring one leg to tabletop at a time, arms come to the ceiling, adding a little bit of pressure into those loops in order to keep that shoulder stable. Gorgeous. Let's begin. Lower down to our sides, parallel. Beautiful. Bring those arms out to the T without going past your shoulders or past the reformer. Now slowly bring the arms back up to center to start. Gorgeous. And go again. Lowering down, keeping that transverse abdominis turned on and that pelvis nice and neutral, even though our spine is imprinted in order to find pelvic stability. Beautiful. And let's go again. And obviously we would then reverse our circle direction here in class in order to make sure that we were evenly using said muscles. Deltoids are helping her to stop there at that proper T. Go ahead and find the foot bar. Beautiful. We're finding circumduction. We're finding the lats are being turned on. And it's just a really healthy way to work that shoulder. So thank you so much. Okay, next we're going to go into our supine feet. And we'll start with the beginner. So this is back to the one red, one blue, which is where we're at. Again, Jack will have her loops here. We'll place one foot in at a time. We have to choose which one you want to start with. So go ahead and rise that foot up and bring that knee towards your chest. Foot goes into the loop. We secure it in the arch, then press against this loop to get some tension. Rise up the other leg, find that loop. Beautiful. So now we are securely in. Gorgeous. Okay, so we'll start with a lower and lift, but this starts at a 45 degrees going towards the aisle. So as we lift, go ahead and point your toes. Beautiful. Now, rise up those legs parallel to each other and adduct it together till 90 degrees. Beautiful. Flex the feet. We'll slowly lower it back down. Keeping those legs glued together. Point the toes. Thank you. Rise it back up. So we're not going past the 90 degrees in the hip here. And flex and lower it back down. And keeping her to the 45 so that we do not go past the foot bar and dump into that lower back. Her pelvis is glued to the carriage at all times. We are working in a neutral spine because she has her legs in a close kinetic chain because we have the loops on. Always keeping arm energy nice and active to keep those scapula back and down. Beautiful. Okay, take one more there. And we're exhaling on the hardest part for her. So sometimes the lift is the hardest. We'll find an exhale on the left, maybe an inhale as we lower. Beautiful. Okay, our second is the bend and stretch. We're going to have her go ahead and bend her knees into tabletop, please, and thank you. Awesome. And we'll go ahead and keep her legs abducted. I have to get that B in there, to hip distance apart. So, always more difficult when we're working with our feet and straps to have our legs hip distance apart rather than glued together. So for our intermediate, I'll have you press the legs out towards the aisle to the 45, keeping our toes flexed, and then bringing it back in, keeping those legs abducted, so they're working almost as independent units to each other. Beautiful. And bringing it back in. Her core is working a little bit harder to maintain this abduction in the hips, so our hip flexors are more turned on. Pelvis is still nice and stable. We're still working in neutral. Shoulders are staying back and down. One more, making sure not to hyperextend, and bring the legs back in. Beautiful. We can go ahead and hang up those loops. Carefully remove one at a time. That foot finds the foot bar. Thank you. And then put a little bit of pressure there. Beautiful. We'll go ahead and hang those loops on the pegs. Thank you very much. And long loops on. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go into upper body facing straps. So, Miss Jack, if you could go ahead and come on up off of the reformer, tuck your toes under, and then just swivel on out. We need to add the long box to our reformer. So we have a long box here. Long goes lengthwise, short goes the other direction towards the shoulder pads. And we're doing facing, so however is most comfortable for you, let's have you come to sitting with your feet in between the headrest there. So carefully come on, finding a 90-degree in the knee position if that's comfortable for you. If she has tight hips, it's also okay to kind of open up a little wide in those hips to release a little bit of that, but Jack has nice and strong hips. Awesome. Go ahead and grab those short loops in front of you, please. Thank you very much. Okay, and for our facing straps, we're going to start with a bicep curl. So she's going to have her arms, and I'm going to drop you down, to one blue spring. Thank you very much. One blue spring. She's already geared in. I'm going to have you take your palms and go ahead and bring them up to the ceiling, so they're facing the ceiling, and she's going to keep her arms at shoulder height throughout. A nice neutral spine here. We need to be stacked, nice and tall, so it's like reaching out at the top of the crown. Hips are stable, legs are bent, and we've got the nice neutral spine. Arms stay at shoulder height. She will take her loops and bring them closer to her, staying in parallel, and then slowly come back to start. So maybe inhale to prepare on the way back. Exhale as you bring that bicep curl in. We're keeping that neutral spine, stacked nice and tall. Inhale as we come back down. So obviously our both bicep heads are being used at this moment. We're also using our transverse abdominis to keep our lumbopelvic stability down below. She's working all of her mid-back series here in order to stay nice and upright here on the box. We're using our shoulders and our scapula here to keep a nice shoulder as she's working in this shoulder height, maintaining that stability. And we'll do one more. And then we'll go ahead and bring it all the way back, and we can lower those arms. Thank you so much. Okay, second we will move into chest expansion, adding cervical rotation. So I'm going to keep her on one blue. For an intermediate class, you could go to one red, but I would like to keep it here so we're stable in the shoulders. We're going to add the cervical rotation. Okay, so we start again with the seated position, nice and neutral spine. She's sitting nice and tall, feeling like she's growing out of the front of her head. Her hands are going to be long and straight beside her, open palms, so we never want a death grip. Very good. And our shoulders are back and down. Wonderful. Inhale to prepare. Exhale. Bring those hands past your hips, and then bring it back to start. We're slowly finding that motion past our hips, and back into start. This time, let's add that cervical rotation. Pull those straps just past your hips. Pause here. Rotate the head to the right. Back to center. Rotate to the left. Back to center. And bring those straps back to start. Let's add that breath work. Inhale to prepare. Exhale. Bring the hands back. Hold here. Inhale as you turn right. Exhale to center. Inhale as you turn left. Exhale to center. And then inhale, we let the straps come back. One more time. Exhale. Bring the straps back. Beautiful. Hold. Rotate right. Back to center. Left. Back to center, and let those loops loose. So we're looking for shoulder stability here, as well as growing in the pecs, keeping the deltoids nice and safe. The lats are being used. Wonderful. Okay, now we will move into the upper body facing away, so the anterior part. If you could please hang up those loops onto the pegs, we'll have you come off of the reformer into your workstation and have you come to sitting again, but facing towards the aisle. So maybe sit first. Hand on is always helpful for safety. Beautiful. Bringing our feet to be tucked in here. You can sit crisscross applesauce. You can have your legs extended and flexed over to the side. Whichever is most comfortable for you is absolutely fine. Okay, so we're going to start with cervitray. I'm keeping her on one blue spring again. We'll reach back and carefully grab one loop at a time. Beautiful. Using those long loops for beginners. We can move to short loops for our intermediate or advanced classes, but this does shorten the range of motion. So our hands are going to be facing palms up to the ceiling. We're in 90 degree at the elbow here, right here by our core, sitting nice and tall. Again, neutral spine, neutral pelvis throughout, lifting through the crown of the head. And we'll extend those arms in parallel to the front of us to shoulder height, and then slowly bring them back to start. So go again. Exhale as you push out to find shoulder height. Inhale as we're coming back to start. So all of this shoulder front is gaining stability within the deltoid, also within that AC joint. She's great gaining strength here in her pecs. Her back is also gaining strength by having to sit up nice and tall in this neutral position with the lats. Go ahead and take one more. And of course, her core and transverse abdominis is being used in order to keep that lumbopelvic stability. Awesome job. Okay, next we go into huggetry, which is definitely more of an intermediate because she's got this lateral movement that she has to make. So again, the shoulder stability has to be definitely there. So we'll go ahead and have you stay in that seated position. I'm going to ask you to bring your arms out safely to a lateral kind of almost like a big giant hoop. Imagine the largest ball you can find. Exactly. We want to see her pinkies and her peripheral. She never wants to go past her peripheral vision. With our elbows slightly bent here to keep safe, stacked in this neutral spine, lifting from the crown of the head. She'll make the lateral movement towards the front of her body or the anterior part of her body, making her big huggetry, and then slowly bring the arms back, keeping those pinkies and peripheral. Exhale as you bring in your huggetry. Inhale as you slowly, with the same amount of tension and time, come back out. Beautiful. So we're making sure her shoulders are staying back and down. We see her scapula pinching back and down to activate those back muscles. Plenty of chin and chest space here. Abdominals are firing to keep that neutral pelvis. And go ahead, one more. She's keeping that shoulder height throughout. Beautiful. Okay, we can go ahead and hang up those loops. Thank you very much. Very safely look behind you. Place the long loops on the peg. All right, now it is time for short box. All springs on. So could you please dismount off of the box for me? Thank you. We'll bring our box to the short box position. So that means it is less in length, making sure that it is equally on the carriage. And for any short box movements that we do up here, we make sure all springs are on because we will be leaning pretty demonstrably. Bringing the canvas up and out from below, I will have Jack go ahead and come on to being seated onto the box safely. And then because this is a beginner motion, we'll have her keep her heels on the edge of the carriage here and just find the canvas with her toes. So that way she is positioned in two different places here and her legs aren't more fully extended with a longer lever. Beautiful. May I grab a maple bar for you? Sure. Wonderful. So the maple bar is going to help her upper body stay active as she moves, and it also will allow her to think about her upper body kind of moving in all one function. Okay, so we're going to start with rollback with rotation. So with our rollback, she starts with a neutral spine. We make sure that she has a nice stacked core here. Again, lifting out of the crown of her head. She has her knees adducted together. We're going to go ahead and bring the maple bar out in front of us. Beautiful. So your arms are extended, but again, a little micro bend. And Jack does have a little bit of a wider shoulder range, so she can have her hands on the outside of the maple bar, or she can come in just a little bit more. Either way is fine. Okay. Is that a little tight? You're kind of right in the middle. Yeah, you're right in the middle. So let's have her come out to wherever's, yes, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to inhale to prepare. prepare. With her exhale, she'll start with tucking the chin towards the chest. She will then imprint the spine as if we were finding our pelvic tilts. Slowly rolling into her C curve, one vertebrae at a time as she leans back, finds the most safe comfort that she has in not popping that lower abdominals, and then slowly tuck the chin using the crown of the head to find her C curve back up to sitting nice and tall in that neutral spine. Beautiful. Go again. Inhale to prepare. Exhale to tuck the chin. Start to imprint that lower lumbar, C curving back one vertebrae at a time, keeping those arms in shoulder height, finding about the 45 degree, or when she feels that rectus abdominis want to start to pop, that is more than we need to go. Beautiful, and back up. One more time. Inhale to prepare. Exhale. Tuck the chin. Start that C curve. Going lumbar spine first. Then the thoracic begins to start to come down. Beautiful. Stop here. Then we'll inhale to prepare. Coming back up and finding beautiful. So it's all about finding that C curve, keeping the shoulders at shoulder height for stability. So we're still working that upper body and making sure that we are safe on the box with our canvas strap. Okay, second we're going into side-facing mermaid. So again, we're always keeping the full springs on. I'm going to go ahead and take that maple bar from you, if that's okay. We'll have you face the direction of the camera. So I want you to keep this outside leg, perfect, tucked into this canvas because we want to keep some sort of grounding point for you. You can sit this front leg, but if that is awkward for you, just let it go ahead and come over the side. Sometimes our hips are a little too tight. Is it stuck? Oh, there you go. Give her a little distance. There we go. See, it's like a normal class. There has to be a hiccup. Okay, and let's see here. So either the Z-sit front, or we can have that leg coming just over the side, like cascading over. Her outside leg here is going to make sure to stay in that canvas strap. And Jack, again, being as active and as flexible as she is, this kind of straight leg is perfectly fine for her. We just want to make sure this foot is safe underneath that canvas strap. Beautiful. So for mermaid, again, we're looking for that lateral flexion. So we're going to go ahead and take our inhale with a neutral spine. Our pelvis is neutral. We're staying in neutral throughout. Again, this is a little bit of a disassociation where the top is moving in one direction and the bottom is staying very still. So we'll inhale to prepare. We'll bring our arms out here. Go ahead and give just a quick, yep, there we go. Tighten it up. Yep, nice and tall. Okay, now we'll inhale, excuse me. And we'll go ahead and place the inside. We're going outside first? Oh, we're going up. Huh?
Which way are we going?
That's a good point. Okay, let's try that again. My bad. We'll inhale. There you go. Let's go ahead and tuck our outside or well hand in towards our hip. Our outside foot bar hand comes up and cups over. Beautiful. And then stack the spine. Arms come out laterally again. So we'll go ahead and inhale as we find our flexion to the other side. Exhale as we stack it back up. For me, I find that to be the harder part. Inhale as we find the stretch over laterally, allowing those obliques to take action. And then inhale as we find our lateral flexion this way. So she's keeping a neutral spine throughout. We're keeping that pelvis absolutely stable. Both sets of obliques, both the inner and outer obliques are working. One is helping her to condense the side, the other is helping her to stretch towards the opposite side. We're keeping, again, that beautiful shoulder stability as she moves into flexion, and her head stays in plumb line along with that cervical spine. Thank you so much, that was lovely. Okay, next we go into long box prone extension, pulling straps. So, I'm gonna have you dismount again, take that foot out of the canvas strap, beautiful. We'll come on off. So, for pulling straps, we wanna make sure to lower the foot bar so that it does not impede her movement. Let's go ahead and take it all. Yeah, there we go. That canvas strap is a little awkward today. Okay, and then we're gonna go to one blue spring, excuse me, as we move her into our pulling straps. Because again, the shoulder stability is so incredibly important. We don't want to overpower the movement. It's more about finding that stability. She's already geared in because she does not gear out. So I will have you come to the prone position. Best way to do this is to have your hands planted on the box, bring up one knee at a time. Beautiful, almost finding like a quadruped. And then slowly lowering yourself so that your pelvis is in the center of the box. Your front part, just below sort of the chest line here, will be off of the front of that box. We want to make sure that we have a steady pelvis here, that you are centered. I think you look good. Okay, we'll have active energy in the legs. Legs will be abducted, hip distance apart, thank you, and plantar flexion. Now for beginners, if we have someone that is not able to pull straps with any weight to it, we would have them doing this motion without a spring on and just having the arm motions by themselves. But Jack, being as strong as she is, even for a beginner, I think she could handle the one blue. So we'll go ahead and have her grab up on the ropes here, but above where the hinges or where the hooks find. There you go, so where that tape is. And she'll want to make sure she's starting with straight rows and with straight arms. She has a neutral pelvis, neutral spine. We are not in flexion or extension. Nice plumb line, head, neck, and chest is in line. She's got a nice stacked here spine. Beautiful. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, pull the arms like you're dragging your knuckles just alongside the reformer, finding the hips, and slowly bringing it back to start. We go again. Slowly plow those arms back past your hips or just slightly to them. Beautiful. Depends on the person's flexibility in that shoulder. Again, we want to keep shoulder stability. We're building a very strong back in this process using the lats. Beautiful. And we'll go one more time. Again, she's keeping a neutral spine throughout, keeping active energy in the legs, and making sure that pelvis is nice and strong. Beautiful. Go ahead and hold here for one moment. Next, we're going to go into progressing. So we can also add a tricep press here by holding by the side of the box, and then also adding that extension. So we'll go ahead and do that here. So I'll have you grab, and we'll find that original setup where you have your hands on the tape there. They're down by your sides. Beautiful. We'll have active energy back through the legs, plantar flex in the toes. As you go from the neutral spine this time, I want you to find extension, and then we'll add a tricep press. So when you're ready, go ahead and exhale. Hold the straps back, hold here, bend the elbows at 90 degrees. Find that tricep press. Beautiful. One more, and then we'll come back and add that extension to the next one. Gorgeous. Go ahead and bring it back in. Yep, thank you very much. Okay, this time we'll add the full extension. So we'll be mindful that she's just lifting the head, neck, and chest and not pulling on the neck. When you're ready, we'll go ahead and pull those straps on back, finding that extension. Beautiful. And find that tricep. We'll go ahead and do 3 on this one. How about that? Beautiful. So she's holding that chest lift, head, neck, and chest is up. She's still staying in a beautiful plumb line, keeping that cervical spine in mind, keeping her pelvis still very neutral on the box, only adding the extension here in the back. Beautiful. That looks great. Thank you very much, Miss Jack. Okay, next we'll go into plank prone elephant. So we need to remove the long box. Wonderful. I kept her on the one blue again, so we're building stability, not just strength, especially in that mid-back. Very good on your dismount. Okay, so next let's go into elephant. So for elephant, one red. Oh, let me put our foot bar back first. Don't run away, foot bar. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. Thank you much. I'm just technically challenged today. What does that mean? There we go. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to go into elephant. Okay, so with elephant, we want to make sure not only that Jack is strong enough to maintain one right spring on the reformer, we want to make sure that she is aware enough to be almost standing on the reformer for a lot of this exercise. So we will go ahead and bring you onto the reformer by placing your knees here on the carriage. We'll have our hands on the foot bar for support. I'm going to stand here with her and also kind of keep this carriage still as she's finding her original positioning, because I don't want it to fly away as we just did as we were moving the foot bar. Okay, so we have our feet up against the shoulder pad. This is her contact point down below. Her hands are on the foot bar. She's in shoulder distance apart. So we are going to go ahead and actually I'm going to make you put your feet flat on the carriage. Excuse me, that's a more advanced version. So your feet are going to be heels against the shoulder pads with your feet flat. So I'm going to have you, excuse me, leave my leg there. Can you place your foot flat on the carriage and have your heel against the shoulder pad? Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. Okay, so she can come up to the shoulder pad as a more advanced version of elephant, but I think this is a good place to start for the beginner so she's not raised on those toes just yet. Okay, so as I let the carriage go, do you have control? Okay, making sure that she has control at all times. Beautiful. So with a flat neutral back, I want you to try to hinge back and extend the carriage a couple of inches here, finding your plank, slowly but surely using that core in order to hold you up. Shoulders are nice and stable, finding that neutral back is still staying. And then with your exhale, go ahead and pull the carriage back in using your core, finding that pike up as you slowly bring the carriage back to the stopper. Okay, go again. There we go. Finding this natural plumb line, plank as we press out, and then exhale as we come back in using that core, that transverse abdominis to bring the carriage back to the stopper. She's keeping a neutral shoulder throughout. Beautiful. Finding that plumb line, and then slowly bringing from that plank into the pike, using the pelvis, using that pelvic floor. It's like raising up in the pelvic floor and the core in order to find that pike back to standing. Beautiful. Always making sure the cervical spine is not having any pressure put on it. Great job. Why don't we go ahead and come back to our knees? Wonderful. How'd that feel? Good. Good. Okay. So nice proud chest as she moves. Again, shoulders are absolutely stable. We would make sure that Jack is able to plank pretty darn well, and that she's strong enough to stand up on the reformer in a class setting. Absolutely. Okay. So next we are moving on to our progression of this, where again, if we progress, she could bring her heels and her toes up against the shoulder pads, which would add less stability, and she'd be working more of the ankle articulation on that one. That would be another progression. And then this would also lead us into doing the flat back. No, sorry, up stretch. Excuse me, I'm not doing flat back. Up stretch. So we're basically starting in the elephant position, but we're moving forward into the plank and then pressing back into the elephant. Okay. So, when you're ready, I'll have you stand back up carefully onto the reformer here. Thank you. We'll place our feet flat onto the carriage. Beautiful. Hip distance apart. Always making sure to keep that in mind. Shoulders are shoulder distance apart. Beautiful. We're staying on one red spring again. So this time I will have Jack lean forward almost over the foot bar as she presses the carriage out, extending the hips into a plank, and then slowly bringing herself back in order to find our start position. So she's pressing her shoulders over the foot bar, allowing that carriage to move, keeping a flat back throughout a neutral spine, but now the weight and the pressure is to the front of the body instead of the back. So this is incredible shoulder stability, deltoids, her pecs. Again, that transverse abdominis to move this pelvis and this hinge. One more time for good measure. And back to the stopper. And again, keeping her cervical neck in line with her body. Great job. Okay, so that is the end of our reformer work. Now we'll be moving into the jump board setup in order to get into our cardio work on the reformer. So the jump board, if you could just come on off for me there, thank you. So the jump board, again, we would need to move our foot bar down to our lowest setting in order to allow space for that jump board to come in between the two metal posts. We also need to talk about how the jump board is helpful if we have multiple pregnant people, for instance, in our classes, and we need to set it up as a wedge, so that way that they have the support they need to not lie completely supine, which would be a big contraindication for pregnant women with that vagus nerve. So, 2 different ways that we can do this. We can either line up the jump board, like for instance, if we have a taller guest and she needs a little bit more support going this direction, and have a pad placed here so we do have padding on that lower back. And then this way we still have a lovely incline, they won't be lying supine. Or, if this feels more stable for them, and perhaps maybe they're shorter, we can also hook the edge of the jump board there and then place the pad up above. That would work as well. So they both give us the incline that we require. So placing the jump board back here, again, we lowered that foot bar. I'm going to toss it like a pizza, place it in between the metal, and then have a nice contact here between the wood and the foot bar, which has already been lowered. Now, normally, if I was having Jack do any kind of jumping, we would go into ankle articulation and footwork and all those things before we would have her do any jumping. But we've already had that footwork done, and we are assuming that I would have already taught her ankle articulation in class. Okay, so Miss Jack, go ahead and come on over. We're going to start with a more beginner's version of our jumping. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and go into 2 reds?
Whatever you want.
2 reds good? Okay. Beautiful. And I would recommend to her several things before we jump. So first of all, make sure you get lying supine in condition that is comfortable for you. Make sure you have about 1 inch away from those shoulders with the shoulder pad, because once we get going, she's going to smush on up for sure. We keep our feet flat on the foot bar and trying to keep that toe ball heel and heel ball toe as we work. So just kind of judging the body in front of you, making sure that the feet can lay flat on the jump board is very important. So again, we would have done footwork, we would have done ankle articulation, and now we would be moving into our jumping. I also would recommend removing the loops back here so that we don't have a lot of clanking. That's also very helpful. Okay, so our first will go into our bilateral setup. Again, she'll be very, very conscious to jump first and land opposite. So she'll be jumping from kind of the base of her feet, but landing toe ball heel. So it's jump heel ball toe, land toe ball heel. So that's something that we'll put into her mind as we cue. Okay, so we're going to start with bilateral, feet are just going to be parallel and hip distance apart. And as you're jumping, it's the top third of the jump board that you want to hit on. That's where we're striking. And I also like to be mindful to try to keep your symmetry that we would normally have. So almost reminding yourself where that foot bar would be. You want your heels to be kind of where that would be. Absolutely. Great. So we'll go ahead and inhale here. Maybe take a little tiny bounce here and there just to find a little bit of movement. There we go. Or maybe just extend the carriage out a couple of times. Just getting her movement back going since we were on the arms here. There we go. I just don't want your ankles to be upset. Okay, now we'll go ahead and jump as we extend the carriage out. We're letting the first part of the legs find a little bit of height here so that again, as she lands, she would be finding where her feet would normally find the foot bar. We're trying to keep our feet heel ball toe, toe ball heel. Again, the pelvis is nice and heavy on the carriage. Go ahead and stop here, hon. We'll switch our feet. We're going to go into a Pilates V, so our heels are together, our toes apart. Beautiful, staying at that top third. So again, as you're jumping, we're making sure to keep that pelvis glued to the carriage. We're working with a neutral spine so that we aren't compressing that lower back too much. That core is absolutely firing in order to keep that pelvis nice and stable and keeping her in control of the carriage. Beautiful. And then we'll go ahead and come back in, and then let's go wide. That'll be our next setup here. So having our external rotation again for the top of the jump board, making sure that you are coming back and striking carefully on those edges. Thank you very much. And keeping the external rotation in the hips. This is working our lateral rotators in the hips, our deep six flexors, neutral pelvis again, neutral spine. Go ahead and jump, Miss Jack. Find that jump. Again, allowing the legs to rise slightly as she finds that extension in order to remind herself where that foot bar would be and where she would naturally come back for her symmetry. Beautiful. Okay, so next we'll go ahead and move into springboard. You ready? I know, that went quickly. Great job. Okay, so removing the footboard, you would unhook the twists here, never making them so tight when you set it up that you aren't able to then bring it back down and then remove that, bringing your foot bar back to center. Okay, so at the springboard, Miss Jack. Sorry, which springboard? Let's go right here. I think that's a better view for us. I'm going to have you bring those yellows down to shoulder height. Thank you. Let's get okay. Oh, I'm sorry. We need to do roll down first. My bad. We're going to bring the yellows down to the number 8, excuse me, and we're going to grab that roll down bar that we used for our short box and attach it here to the yellows. And we can either keep the handles on or remove them, either way. There we go. Beautiful. And I will have you sit on the mat, and we'll have our legs extended out in front of us. We will have them abducted at hips distance apart, and we'll have our toes flexed back towards us. For our beginner crew, if they feel the need to have their toes tucked under that bar down below, that's helpful in order for them to feel safe. Okay, our hands are shoulder distance apart. Beautiful. So the C curve that we did here up on the short box, we're going to repeat down here. We just have a little bit more space to move. So stacking that spine in a nice neutral, beautiful, sitting up from the top of the head, shoulders are back and down, squeezing those scapulae down. Beautiful. With a neutral pelvis and spine, go ahead and inhale to prepare. Now exhale, tuck the chin to the chest, start to imprint the spine, roll on back, finding that C curve, mid back is last. Come all the way down. Now let's pull the bar into the chest. Extend the arms back out, and then slowly starting with the crown of the head, exhale as you start to C curve your way back up. Beautiful. Let's do that again. We're inhaling to start. We're nice and tall. With your exhale, tuck the chin to the chest. Start with that lumbar spine, imprint down, finding that mid-back, all the way last. We find the shoulders back and down. Inhale as you pull the bar to your chest. Extend the arms back out. And then let's go ahead and exhale, tuck the chin, coming back up, finding that articulation with the spine. And this time, roll on over the tops of this foot. There you go. Find that nice stretch forward. And come back up. Beautiful. So a little forward fold at the end can really feel nicely. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that one more time, and we'll really pay attention to the breath work so that we have everything working. We're having a little active energy in those quads in order to keep that pelvic stability in those legs, and then also the lumbar stability, that transverse abdominis. The glutes are helping us here. Okay, when you're ready, sit nice and tall with your inhale. Shoulders are back and down. Beautiful. Exhale, tuck the chin to the chest. Allow that imprint of the spine, articulating each vertebrae down one by one, feeling it hit the mat. Shoulders are back and down last, then head. Beautiful. Inhale, find that bar pull. Exhale, bring it back out. Inhale first, then go ahead and tuck the chin and find that C curve back up. Beautiful. And forward fold over the knees if that feels good. Beautiful. Okay, next we're going to add the back extension on this next one. So we're going to have the same setup. We're just going to add a little extension here at the end. As you start, again, nice active spine, active energy out of the crown of the head. Finding the neutral spine, neutral back, neutral pelvis, shoulders back and down. Beautiful. Inhale, and then exhale. Tuck the chin to the chest. Start to roll it back, finding that imprint. Using that transverse abdominis. Yes. Slowly down. Now as you're down, go ahead and pull the bar in. And as you let the bar out, find a little extension in your back as if your chest was rising you up first. And then start to stack back up to neutral. Beautiful. Shall we do that again? Okay. This time let's go to extension and then we'll go back down to neutral and then we'll see curve back up. Sound good? Okay. So this time, inhale to repair. Exhale, tuck the chin to chest, allowing that imprint of the spine. Low lumbar first, then thoracic. All the way down, cervical spine is down. Beautiful. Inhale, pull the bar to the chest. Exhale, as you let the bar go, find your flexion, or extension, excuse me. Beautiful. Inhale here, find neutral again. Awesome. Exhale, tuck the chin and find your way back up, articulating. And beautiful. And sit back up. That was lovely. Okay, let's see here. Rotation with a pulse. So instead of doing the C curve on this one, we're going to be using a flat back. So making sure that she has the strength and the core strength to keep that flat back throughout. And Miss Jack does, she's very strong. So we have one hand that stays on the maple bar up here, the roll down bar, and the other hand and arm is going to come out to a lateral T, keeping our arm in a nice back and down fashion here with the shoulders. We're making sure that we're not hunched up. We're keeping a neutral spine. We're keeping a neutral pelvis. Hand is in the center of the bar so that we stay nice and centered or close to. There you go. Okay. Now, inhale to prepare. As you exhale, hinge in a flat back and begin to reach as you rotate, trying to touch the back part of the mat. Hold here and start to stack yourself back up as you rotate and hinge back in an equal fashion. Okay, go again. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, start to rotate and hinge back, keeping that flat back. Beautiful. Inhale. Exhale, reach a little further. Sorry, Miss Jack. Now we stack it back up. You want to do that one more time? Beautiful. Okay. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, start the flat back, hinge, rotate, pause. Inhale, grow taller. Exhale, press out. Beautiful. Inhale as you come back up. Beautiful. One more? Sure. Great. Exhale as you come on back, finding that flat back, finding that rotation. Try to touch the mat. Inhale, grow a little taller as you exhale one more time. Beautiful. And inhale as you sit back up. Gorgeous. Okay, so roll down bar accomplished. Now let's move to standing upper body, relatively at shoulder height. If you can come up from the mat, my dear, we will remove the maple bar. We will bring those yellows up to shoulder height. So for Miss Jack, she will probably be a number 8. If people are in between shoulder heights, the lower usually better than the taller, so that way they're not pulling down uncomfortably as they're pulling out. We'll put those handles back on. Thank you, Maggie. And then we'll stand far enough away from the springboard that we feel like you have enough tension, but not so much that we can't do the work. So go ahead and place your hands in those handles. Beautiful. Our legs are shoulder distance apart, or excuse me, hip distance apart. And we'll have our shoulders back and down, making sure the scapula are being tucked into your back pocket to activate those back muscles. Hands are down to our side and kind of like a low V. Wonderful. And we'll inhale to repair. Exhale, chest expansion as we move those hands past our hips. Inhale as we bring it back to start. Exhale as we bring those back past our hips. Inhale as we bring it back to start. So we're making sure to find space here in the chest as we open up, making sure that we're keeping a nice, tall, neutral spine as we work, and also making sure she has a little micro bend on those knees so that we're not doing anything uncomfortable to that knee joint. Okay, next we're going to go into offering. So we're going to turn the other direction. So go ahead and face the aisle. Our hands are going to be facing up towards the sky. having our arms in a 90-degree bend, the elbows here flexed at the elbows, and we're tight in towards the core. So making sure, again, we have a little micro bend in the knees for hip distance apart. Wonderful. Shoulders are back and down, nice proud chest. As we press our hands out to shoulder height. Yep, you might need a little difference in the size here. Yep. So we'll exhale as we press the arms out to shoulder height. Inhale as we bring them back in to start 90 degrees flexed elbows. Exhale as we go out. Inhale as we come back in. So again, all about finding the shoulder stability here up with our deltoids, with our pecs. Her back muscles are also firing right now because this is also a bit of a balance challenge, working with the unilateral springs. They're not in the same rate. And trying to keep symmetrical stability here between the two. Wonderful. Okay, next we're going to go into our standing sideways external rotation. So again, we're very internal in our life, so we want to make sure that we're offering some external rotation and some mobility into that shoulder. So just the front spring in that inside hand. No, outside hand. Thank you. It looked weird from here too. Okay, so again, making sure that we have our feet just below us and our hip distance apart, nice neutral spine, standing nice and tall. We'll have that outside hand into the spring, beautiful. And then keeping our upper arm very close to our side, we will just hinge at the elbow as we external rotate out towards the aisle and then bring it back to start. So it's a very small range of motion. She has her other hand tucked up behind her to make sure that she's keeping this neutral spine. And it's just opening up like a door, finding that hinge in the elbow, keeping the wrist nice and strong, making sure not to break in that wrist. Beautiful. And hopefully not a death grip. Awesome job. Okay, next we will go into side twist standing. So we'll keep that hand in that spring, offer the other hand to come in. Beautiful. Going back to that barrel position, where it looks like you've got a hugger tree or a nice big barrel position. Shoulders are back and down, making sure that you have, again, a nice neutral spine, keeping our feet hip distance apart, nice long plumb line, a little bit of a micro bend in those knees. Beautiful. So here's a disassociation. Can you twist just the upper half of your body towards the aisle without allowing that other half of your body or from your hips down to move forward? So disassociation, using your obliques to find this twist, keeping those shoulders back and down so the scapula are very, very isolated and very strong as well. Shoulder stability in order to keep her arms in that hugger tree. Triceps are firing, biceps are firing. Awesome job. Such a great task. Okay, so next we'll go into feet and straps with our purples down below. This will be the last of our springboard exercise. So bring those jellies back up to 11, please. We'll have those springboard purples down to the 5. Go ahead and unhook them so that they're not on top of one another. Let's have you lie supine on the mat. And your head will be towards the springboard as close as you feel comfortable. And we will place one leg in at a time. So lift one of your legs to tabletop. Attach that purple loop to your arch. Beautiful. Find a little bit of spring there so you feel comfortable. Okay. Now grab the other loop, raise the other leg into tabletop, and go ahead and find that purple spring as well. So Jack is going to work in a neutral spine because again, it's a closed kinetic chain. She's got her feet in the loops. If she wants her hands on the bar in order to keep herself feeling safe down below, she's welcome to do that. Also helps to give her a little stability in that lumbopelvic and shoulder region. Okay, so we're going to start with our legs adducted together, and we're going to go into our bend and stretch. So, similar to what we did with our feet and straps on the reformer, but different because these are working in a unilateral function as being separate springs. So flexing the toes, keeping the tabletop 90 and 90. Yeah, go ahead. And again, a little shimmy is always great, making sure that she's feeling secure. Keeping a neutral spine, she will go ahead and extend those legs out towards the 45, and then slowly bend the knees back in towards the tabletop. Not wanting to go past that 90 degrees at the hip or the 45 at the legs, keeping a slight micro bend in those knees. Her core is firing in order to keep this pelvis nice and stable. We've got the upper shoulder stability as well in order to keep her glute to the mat, her quads, hamstrings, and hip flexors working in order to make the bend and stretch. Beautiful. Okay, next we're going to go into the lower and lift, but this time I would like your legs abducted to hip distance apart. Thank you. And we're going to add some ankle articulation as well. So for the lower lift, we start at the 45, so go ahead and bring it down to the 45. We're going to point the toes. Now rise the legs back up to our 90 degrees. Now flex the toes, lower them on down to the 45. So again, working with the springs in a more unilateral fashion because they are separate. And the legs abducted apart is a lot more difficult. She's using a heck of a lot more in this pelvic stability here, trying to keep the pelvis nice and stable. So we're using that transverse abdominis, we're using those hip flexors. She's got her glutes and hamstrings firing in order to help her to lower, as well as the quads. Beautiful, one more time. Flex on the way down, keeping those feet parallel, beautiful, and point as we find our way back up. Now carefully bring our legs back to tabletop, and then one at a time, bring it closer towards you so you can remove the strap. Foot comes to the floor, beautiful, and let's do the same over here. Making sure never to have those glutes come back and the springs heavy on a client. All right, thank you, Ms. Jack. That's the end of our springboard.